What does it take to truly build a business from the ground up, to go from an idea to a company that is thriving, to navigate the highs, the lows, and everything in between? Entrepreneurship, it's not just about having a great product or service. It's also about knowing how to sell yourself, how to sell the vision, how to sell the brand. Because at the end of the day, if you can't pitch yourself effectively, you're going to struggle not only to find clients and investors, but also to find the right team. And that's exactly why I'm sitting down with Marty McDonald today. She's a seasoned entrepreneur and the co-founder of Bad Rhino Inc., a powerhouse digital marketing agency that helps businesses and brands that actually convert. In this episode, we're going to talk about the unfiltered truth about entrepreneurship, the things that nobody tells you. We're going to talk about how to master the art of actually pitching yourself and self-promoting your business, why personal branding is so important, and the key to be seen, be heard, and be relevant in a crowded market, no matter what industry you are in. So whether you're a founder, a leader, or someone ready to step into their own story and journey, this is a conversation you do not want to miss. Welcome to the Rise Up For You podcast. Let's jump in. Marty, welcome to the Rise Up For You podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So I'd love to share with the audience before we quickly jump in. Tell us a little bit about who you are and who are you in your school? Let's start there.
In high school, oh my goodness. This is such an interesting question because it's something that I think about so often, right? When I was in high school, my senior year in high school, I remember creating a sorority called Alpha and Omega, and it was a Christian sorority. And I remember doing like a rush and having girls come to it. And I've always been a galvanizer of people. I've always been a teacher. I've always been someone who inclusively wants everybody to win. And when I think back sometimes on my high school years, I'm like, remember that time when you had that sorority you did, right? And I could always win over parents. I had an innate way to win over parents. People's parents trusted me to be with their kids, right? Which just goes to show I've always been a communicator. I've always been able to articulate myself. I've always been able to be someone that's trustworthy in a room. And I think that's why parents gravitated towards me. I was an open book, right? And they knew what they were getting. So, that was Marty in high school. Now, I am a mom of 3 littles under the age of 4. I'm constantly thinking about what legacy am I leaving them? What am I showing them every single day that they can digest about their mom betting on herself? Right. And they're the forefront of every decision I make is based off of my kids and how it can impact them, good or bad. I own 2 companies. I own a media company called Boss Women Media that focuses on 6- and 7-figure founders and intersecting them with corporate leadership. I believe that is a unique way and perspective for small business owners to grow their business into multi-million-dollar businesses, with folks who are sitting in corporate America with the resources they have, with access to the capital that they have, and truly the learnings that they have within the organization. And then outside of doing that, I also own a children's brand. It's called Ella Olivia. It is a lifestyle brand for toddlers to see themselves in everyday moment. We have a character, Ella Olivia, that comes to life in such a big, unique way through artistic expression, showcasing to our toddlers that anything is possible and that they should be dreaming big at a very young age.
I love that. So I want to go back just a little bit because clearly, you're doing some amazing things today. You have 3 little ones under the age of 4. That is amazing. Shout out to you. So I want to know, when you were in high school, you said that, people custody, you've always been like a whole leader of community, always doing it really, really well. But why do you think that is at that? Because, I spent a big portion of my life in education, and more I saw that young adults really struggle with just the social skill, right? The ability to have
opportunities creatively to communicate in a way that can really like influence, especially in high school. So what was it for you? Like, was it your background, your childhood? What do you think contributed to that?
I definitely think my childhood contributed to it. I've always been someone who have believed in just putting yourself out there. But those beginnings of me believing in myself and putting myself out there came from a deficit that I had in my childhood, right? I grew up not much, right? Like not a ton, a single parent household. And I always had to figure things out. In some ways, I used to think that that was the thing that worked against me, but it actually was the thing that worked for me, that helped me propel how to storytell, how to communicate, how to persuade people into what you need them to do to get things done. And most importantly, to be able to enhance your community, right? So I would say from that perspective, my childhood is such a staple and a blueprint, the woman that I have become today. So many times we think our childhood either went great or went bad, right? We label it from that perspective and we use from it what we got. I looked at my childhood as something that built a lot of grit and determination out of me. I know what it feels like to go without. I know what it feels like to have lack. And being uncomfortable is something that I know firsthand how to experience. Those skills have truly taught me how to build a unique business. And in business, it's highs and lows.
Yeah.
All the time, because I know those feelings, those emotions, when you don't want to, when you don't have, when you're receiving the no's, all the things, it only takes me back to the experience of my childhood and how I navigated it that has truly led me to being successful.
Yeah. A lot of times our great things can be our blessings, like the things that we think are the most damaging to us are really the things that help evolve us. And what I heard you say is that self-management piece, because since you already know the feeling and you've already proven to yourself that you can rise above any of those challenges, later on in life, when you have that same feeling, you have that sense of, I can get before. I've been there before. And I got through it, and I know exactly how to do it, what to do, and how to manage yourself. I love that resiliency piece that you're talking about. After high school, you mentioned that you came along and you run these businesses, but what happened in between? Like, how did you know entrepreneurship was for you?
Yeah, I didn't know it was necessarily for me. I was placing myself in environments of what success looked like. 10 years ago, being an entrepreneur was not cool, right? It was not the thing that was trending and popping on Instagram at all. As a matter of fact, it was like, you must be broke if you're an entrepreneur, right? Like, so I was sitting in corporate America, went from gig to gig looking for spaces that I could feel acceptable in, spaces in which I could grow in, spaces in which I could be promoted in, right? And like any of us, man, woman, does not matter. We all know what that feels like when we want to have something so bad and be accepted into a space. And I couldn't find my groundings in corporate America, right? And while I was elevating in so many ways, it never felt settled for me. It never felt like I was intentionally living through what my God-given purpose is. And I was just instead checking a box to get a paycheck, right? So for the last 11 years post-college grad, I found myself feeling the feelings, experiencing the feelings of isolation and imposter syndrome and non-acceptance, right? All the things sitting in corporate America. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to go bet on myself. Everybody wants to bet on themselves. We're just afraid to do it, right? And I had the courage to do it. It was hella scary. I didn't know what the outcome necessarily would be, but I was willing to take the chance because I hadn't before. And I thought, if it doesn't work out, I'll just go back into an environment that maybe I can find myself in. It just so happened It didn't necessarily work its way out to be perfect, but I found my space and my lane of purpose. And because of that is why I never turned around and went back.
I love that. Something that you said about entrepreneurship is you have to bet on yourself. There's no one that is telling you what to do, right? When you're a corporate America or when you have a boss, there is a bit of accountability for other people. And right, the most important thing is your job, right? Well, when you decide to become an entrepreneur and you wake up the following morning, you look around and you think, this is me. Like, no one's going to come get me out of bed to start to talk to me or do what I need to do. One of the things that I see that the biggest challenge for me entrepreneurs is their ability to self-promote, their ability to pitch what they do. Because I'd love to know your experience on this, Marty, but when you first start a company, the way that you get clients is by speaking about your company, saying what you do and like really getting out there and pitching yourself. And that can be very, very uncomfortable for those entrepreneurs to the detriment of them not ever really getting off the ground because they don't know what to talk about themselves or pitch or present themselves. So I'd love to hear a little bit about, your experience in that, and then also for maybe strategies or thoughts that you have around it.
Yeah. So when I first started out, I had to define what is it that you do, right? Like, how could you explain it to someone where it was digestible for someone that could maybe read on a 5th grade level? That's how I always thought about my business. How can I make this so easy and so digestible for someone to understand? So my grandmother could understand what it is that I'm doing, right? And it was really a ton rehearsing and practicing with new people, right? So I think that one part of it is I was putting myself in front of new audiences, right? Your friends are not your customers. You got to go find who your customers are that you can share and sell what you do too. And it was any room I was going into, if I was at conferences or events or happy hours or new circles of networking opportunity, it was me constantly sharing and then asking, does that make sense to you? Right? Getting their feedback and leaning in. Over the last 7 years of me building this business, what I learned along the way, the last 7 years of me, it was much more so around how I serve other people in that explanation, right? It was less about me and more about bringing people along to the journey, right? So what is the impact that you're making, right? Like, that's where I like to lead and start with when I'm sharing with people who want to talk about themselves all the time. The entrepreneur showcasing, storytelling, sharing what you do, have to lean into making new friends from the perspective of what you do helps someone else. So it's not about you at all, right? And that's the power that you then have to leverage your storytelling capability. So that was the thing that I learned along the way. The other piece of it was I created a persona for the woman that I was going after, right? And specifically for me and my media company, it was really around me finding this woman and creating a persona around this woman who was in adulthood, and she was trying to figure out what was the next playing field for her. Like, she was so involved in college and she might have been in sorority, and now she's here and she's feeling these themes. How do I go find more of her, right? And I created her profile. Her name was Tamara. Tamara was 28 years old, right? She did these things. This is what she did on the weekend. But that's how I was able to uniquely position myself to storytell about my company, because I found a persona to talk through to her, to find more of her, to be able to make me unique and really create a value proposition in the marketplace.
Yeah, and I love that because, our research shows, Marty, that 80% of professionals struggle with self-confidence. And so whether you're in a corporate workplace or whether you're building your own business, oftentimes we get so stuck in our head. What are you talking about? Like sharing a story and like letting them know how we can make an impact. We're going out the window because we hear all this chatter, right? And so we kind of go down this road of, I'm not enough, and once I stand up, they don't like me, all my beliefs start to come up. And so I think what you're saying is really important, is coming from a place of sharing about service, and people will get what you do when you're authentic in your conversation. You're not that was like on.
Yeah, I lead with authenticity, right? Like, I don't lead as I am the expert in everything. I don't lead from the perspective of monetary value. I don't lead from the perspective flashy, look at me. I lead with authenticity. I can only speak from my experience and the story that I have, right? I know what I have experienced. I know how I've built, right? And I can really lead from that place. And you better believe when I show up, I'm going to show up in the most authentic form. And I believe that that connects people because it showcases to folks, man, this girl came from a small town in Tennessee, right? If she took this concept and built it into a 7-figure brand, I can too. It showcases what's possible for folks. If I led with any other way, I wouldn't be doing myself or my community around me a service of showcasing what's possible for them. And that's really what I want people to know. I want folks to know that if you believe it first, right? And if you lean into it every day, you take the action towards it, I know for a fact things will happen for you. Might not happen in the time frame and in the order in which it will happen for you.
Now, I love that. I always say that, showing up is one of the hardest things to do, but staying power is even more difficult.
Yeah.
Showing up, staying consistent, doing it, you'll see the result. Marty, talk to us a little bit about your book. I see behind Audacious. What inspired you to write it? Give us just a little like the clip of what.
Yeah, Audacious is a self-help book that really showcases to folks what happens when you make bold asks in your life. I share a little bit of my story and my journey in corporate America and how all of those learnings really helped me build myself up as a business owner. I didn't know at the time when I was experiencing it. I was really going through the school of life, right? But I was paying attention to the things that were around me, right? The thing that I will always give credit to corporate America for me was I had to constantly pitch ideas, concepts, thoughts, right? That's what you're doing when you're sitting in spaces such as, right? People want you to show up and be a contributor, right? So you're contributing your thoughts and your ideas. It taught me how to find my voice. It taught me how to communicate my ideas on paper and off paper. It taught me how to galvanize my team to be a part of my idea. All of those are skills that you need when you're building a business, right? If you want your business to be successful. And so the book showcases those stories and those lessons. But what I know is my superpower is pitching, right? It's how I'm uniquely positioning my business with other companies and businesses that we both can make impact together. I can come up with pitch ideas all day long. That is what I do. Throw me on a whiteboard and you're going to get some of the best ideas, right? The biggest ideas. I have made some of the biggest asks to some of the largest brands in the world, and they've said yes, because I lead with confidence, clarity, and communication. The book gives you a framework to those things. And then also it gives you a framework to what we call, getting your bag, right? And everybody thinks about getting your bag from the perspective of getting money. But the acronym for bag in my book is bold, audacious goals. It's believing that it's possible, putting it out there, and then doing the work to go after it. I cannot wait for the world to experience this book.
I love that. And so anyone that's listening, make sure that you follow our recipe and get into it. Marty, thank you so much. I'd love to go to the power section of the interview and ask you some of our rapid fire questions. Yes. So my first question is, do we treat one on? And so I'd like to know something that it's something book experience.
This is going to sound, I'm a creator, right? I love to create. And so right now the seasons are changing and like spaces in my house are being changed out, right? Like to something that feels like what's happening outside. I'm like about to put a new wreath on my front door. Like the flowers in my flower bed are changing. I like to see and experience new things, but most importantly, I think it comes from a space. I am never stuck at being the same. There's always a constant happening around me. When seasons change, things in my house change, and it just brings me so much joy to be able to start a project and finish a project because it feels my endorphins. It feels all of the things that I am capable of doing, and it just builds my confidence when I do that.
I love that. I'd love to know if you were to make the world with one final message, all the people that sharing that right with you, what would be your goal?
That is such a deep question. If I could leave the world with one final message, my message would be creating equitable societies helps all of us. It does not hurt anyone when our tables and our experiences are filled with a diverse group of people.
Love that. And I have one more question for you. But before I ask, where can we find Marty? And so where can we website, social media? I will link that for you.
Yes, you can connect with me on social, Marty T. McDonald. You can pre-order my book. Pre-orders are so incredibly important. You can pre-order it on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Target, Walmart, all the places you buy your books as well. And then my website is also on my Instagram, bosswomen.org, where you can stay connected with me.
Understood. Marcus, it's been hard to tell you as a show. I have a question for you. You know, be right for you. What comes to mind for you when you hear that?
You know, I think about really like this image of us pulling each other up. Someone standing at the top of the ladder and not being afraid to pull the next person up. And it is a cyclical effect. And the next person is pulling the next person up because there's not an end cap of us all rising together. When we all get to the top, we get to enjoy it.
I love that. Marty, thank you so much for joining us today on Right Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And thanks everyone for joining the Right View podcast. Again, this is your host, Nada Lena Nasserdeen. Every single week, we're bringing you a brand new episode of executives, entrepreneurs, thought leaders from around the world that really just want to add value and share with you. I will see you next time. Thank you again, Marty, and everyone. Stay tuned for the next episode.
Welcome to the Rise Up For You podcast. This is your host, Nada Lena Nasserdeen, also the CEO and founder of Rise Up For You. I want to remind you just a little bit about what we do. My team and I are working with organizations, leaders, and entrepreneurs around the world to enhance company culture, performance, potential, all through soft skills. So if you're anything like me and you love to push your potential, you want to be high performing on a day-to-day basis and truly have it all as an individual and as a business, check us out and make sure that you sign up for your free informative call. We have an amazing team of trainers and coaches that are here to serve you. And let's be real, it's hard to do things by yourself. We all have blind spots, including myself. And sometimes it's just that much easier when you have a coach, when you have a mentor that's by your side, cheering you on and helping you and your team get to the next level. Okay, my friends, don't forget to sign up for that call, whether you're a leader in the workplace or an individual looking to grow yourself. We're here to serve you.